Hi, my name is Johnathan Van Arneman. I am a dancer, choreographer, amateur historian from St. Martin. I'm 28 years old. I grew up on the island. I left for a bit and now I'm back. What I love about dance is how universal it is. I think that dance is a language that everyone can relate to in some way or form. We all have rhythm, we all dance. I mean, the very core of human beings is the heartbeat, and that is a constant rhythm. And so I think that we each have rhythm innate to us, which gives us access to dance. And so when I use dance as a language, it's something that everyone can understand. What I love about history is how it roots us. I think that you cannot have a future if you do not know your past, and the same way that time is cyclical and things are cyclical and things keep happening and reoccurring. I think the answers to the future lay in our past. And I think it's really to our benefit to understand the intricate ins and outs of our history and our bodies, and understanding how our ancestors who our ancestors are allow us to be who we are today. And I think that there's a beautiful poetry with the present and the past and how the two intertwine, and I just like discovering that. So in my work, Atlantis Rebirth, I started doing a lot of research. The first historical event that I ever choreographed was Igbo landing. So Igbo landing was not in the Caribbean, it actually happened in the US. It was a situation where the Igbo people, which is a tribe out of Africa, they were taken from Africa, they were brought as enslaved people to the Americas, and they had an uprising, they completely revolted, they took over the ship, and they were successful in their revolt. And so the problem is, when they revolted, they were so close to shore that the Coast Guard then brought them into shore. And when they realized that they were going to be enslaved again upon arriving on shore, they decided to kill themselves. And so one by one, they lined up and they drowned themselves in the marsh nearby. And so we call that area Igbo Landing. It's in present-day Georgia.
And there's, yeah, see? It's in present-day Georgia.
Yes, it's in present-day Georgia. And there's a bit of mythology to the story as well. So some people say that, they drowned, they died. But then the other part of the story is that some people say through the water they were able to make their way back to the motherland, back to Africa. And so I think we often have this perception of history as if it's something so objective, as if there's fact and then there's fiction, or there's history and it's just it's just the way it is. But history is really a story, and it depends who's telling the story, the biases that are present in that story. And so reading different histories from different accounts in different places, I think in Caribbean tradition, oral tradition is very strong. The idea of history being passed on from your mother, your grandmother, your great grandmother, and it goes on from generation to generation to generation. And sometimes we tend to discount this type of history, but it's important to know that this type of history is just as valid as other types of history that we find in history books, and sometimes even more so, because it's withstood the test of time. And so, what was the question I was answering?
Your aha moment with history and dance.
Yes. So in choreographing Igbo Landing, this was for the first big production that I did, which was Atlantis 13, and I co-choreographed that with Peace Manumutsa, my friend in Minneapolis, where I used to live. And I think that experience really, I liked it. I liked it a lot. I liked the research. I liked the discovery. I liked the embodiment also. It's like when you are looking at something that happened in history and then you're able to put yourself in the shoes of those people through movement, I think it awakens something in you. And so what I wanted to do with Atlantis Rebirth was I wanted to take historical moments that were relevant to my people and have people who could see themselves in those stories reenact those stories, because I do think there's a certain amount of information and knowledge that lives within ourselves, and I think through movement we are able to tap into that knowledge and that information even though it may be dormant.
So was the original Atlantis your first dive into history, or were you interested in history before that, or did historical research before that?
That was the first time that I took a historical story, like a historical event, and I choreographed it like a story. In the past, most of the work that I've done has always been informed by some type of history. For example, I did a solo called I Am the Salt of the Earth, and that was about the salt industry in Bonaire. That's where my dad is from. And so the history behind that, of salt and the privatization of the industry and all of those things. So there's always been like some element of history to my work, but it's never been as evident as now, where it's like it's not just used to inform the work, but it is the work. If that makes sense. Great question. So I am in no way, type, or form a purist when it comes to dance. So I think a lot of choreographers, when they approach a piece, they will use a dominant form in that piece. If you're a ballet dancer, you're going to choreograph ballet. If you're a contemporary dancer, it's going to be predominantly contemporary. Because of the way that I was trained in dance, I was kind of all over the place, like literally all over the place. I did some classes here, I did some classes there, I did this, I did that, and that's just the way that it worked out. Not something that I did intentionally, it's kind of just what happened. And so because of that, when I'm choreographing, I tend to use whatever style suits the narrative that I'm trying to tell. So if it's about a revolution, then I will use elements of crump, or elements of maybe West African or Haitian, or something that matches the storyline. If it's about something else, then I'll use something else. Because I feel like dance, sometimes it's so versatile, but we tend to put it in boxes. It's like we tend to take movement and say, no, you can only move like this, or you can only move like that, but it really limits us. And I think that our bodies are so vast that it's really in our best interest to use movement styles that match the storyline, as opposed to trying to take the storyline to match our movement styles.
Okay. And your favorite style?
My favorite style is house. I love house dance.
How does house dance go?
So house it's
Thinking house music.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So house. House, what I will say first and foremost is that house is a black art form, which a lot of people don't know, because I think it's been co-opted by a lot of white Western club goers, predominantly European. It's to the point where some European DJs will name themselves as if they were Black Americans. They will literally adopt, what do you call those things? Like tags. They'll adopt tags, and then when you see them, you're just like, wait, like, no, what? Like, that's not who I thought you were gonna be. And so it's this real weird thing that goes on. But house is such a freeing style. Why? Because I think house allows for any other style to also exist within it. So for example, if I am a salsa dancer and then I do house, the way that I do house is going to be influenced by the way I do salsa. If I'm a contemporary dancer and then I do house, I can include contemporary movement in my house practice. If I am a hip hop dancer and then I do house, so it's like wherever you come to house from, house will accept that, and house allows you to build around that. You know, it's like, of course, there's the basic step, there's the music that's so essential, but it just allows. I don't know. I feel free. I don't feel like technique is law, if that makes sense. In certain forms, I really do feel like it's so technical that it's really hard to just sink into it, because you have to think about so many things. Like, you have to point your feet, you have to make sure that you're in turnout, you have to make sure that this, da, 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 da. You know, it's like your body becomes like rigid, and it's not to say that that can't be beautiful. That is beautiful, but in terms of what's going on in the mind, it's not as comfortable for me as something like house. Yeah. So Mele is, you could say, a talk show, you could say a podcast, you could say a live broadcast. It's basically four of us young St. Martiners who got together to talk about St. Martin history. And the idea behind it is we discuss things that we want to know. It's really us educating ourselves and putting it on video. So the way that it came about, something that I really like to do is to bring together like-minded individuals. And so I had met Steffi on Instagram because she did a post about Morris Bishop, and he's one of my favorite people. So I was like, whoa, like, you know Morris Bishop? You're from St. Martin, like, let's talk. And then I went to school with Ralph. Me and Carla go way back. We debated together, things like that. And so I was seeing all of these different individuals on their own platforms interact with St. Martin history in some way or form. And so I brought them all together, and I was like, of course I started a group chat, and I was like, guys, we should do something, you know, da 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 da. And I think it was Ralph who was saying that, you know, he has a slot on the radio, so if we wanted, we could do a podcast. And I was like, whoa, that's amazing. That's not at all what I had in mind. You know, I just wanted us to do an event or like some kind of outreach or something, you know, but he suggested the podcast. That's how we did our first episode. So our first episode was on July 1st of 2020.
Yeah, I believe so.
Wow, it's been a long time. Yeah, July 1st, 2020, and we made it about Emancipation Day. And it was really interesting, and then from there we kind of just took off. People really identified with it because we don't teach a lot of St. Martin history in school, and that's a problem, because if you don't have ancestors from St. Martin, if your parents aren't from here, if your grandparents aren't from here, then there's no way that you can get that history if it's not through school. You know, so it's like if you're blessed to grow up in a household that has that, then amazing. But that shouldn't be the only way that you get St. Martin culture, St. Martin history. And so Mele is really a way for people to learn things about us that we haven't been taught explicitly. I will say that I returned home to St. Martin in 2019, and ever since I returned home, the reception has been amazing. It's been phenomenal. A lot of returning professionals, I've heard that sometimes people struggle to find their place on St. Martin because it's not the same St. Martin that they left. But I must say that was not my experience at all. I don't know if it's the community that I was so blessed to be a part of at the National Institute of Arts, and the schools, and the dance community and the artists. It's just I just feel like I'm home. You know, it feels like I'm home. It feels like this is exactly where I'm supposed to be, and I am so grateful for this experience, because I know it's not what everyone experiences. Yeah, I feel so supported in my art, and maybe not monetarily, but people come out to support. They come out to see my work. They engage. They talk. I'm so grateful because I don't take that for granted. I've been to so many shows that no one comes, you know, and that happens a lot. Yeah, you know. And so for people to enjoy my work enough to come out to support it, that just means the world to me. And so I just want to say thanks.
Oh, I just had another question. With the success of Atlantis Rebirth, is there now an added pressure to come out with another project, not similar, but like, is there a pressure to come out with another project, or are you just like, I let that go where it goes, and then I'll just enjoy the journey of what I'm doing until something else inspires me to be done?
The pressure is definitely there. You know, every time I have a showing, one of the questions is always, what's next? You know? And I don't know if people just ask that because they don't know what else to ask, but it definitely adds an element of pressure. You know, it's like, if you're not creating work right now, like, what are you doing, you know?
Working.
But I do think that I need to not fall into that mindset. And I really need to see this thing through. You know, it took so long to create Atlantis Rebirth that I want to make sure that I use it for what it's worth for as long as I can. It's like, as long as there are people on the island who have not seen the film, then I need to work on that, you know? And so yeah, I'm still very much trying to get it out there, trying to get people to see it, trying to get it into schools, trying to get people to engage, trying to build some kind of change through it. And then, you know, I think when my next project is ready for me, it'll reveal itself to me. I'm not in any rush, you know? It's like, this is my life's work, so I literally have all the time in the world, you know? so I'm really not in any rush. Yeah,
That's a nice way to look at it.